Welcome back to part 2 of this tutorial on arithmetic and variables. So, I'm sure you're intrigued on what the code in front of you means, so I'll explain it to you line by line. First we have the class definition, which you're familiar with already. That just tells the compiler that this is called arithmetic, and it will create the arithmetic class. Then we've got the main method, which is called automatically when we run the program. Okay, now into the stuff which we might not be so familiar with. First, we are declaring 3 new variables of the integer data type. Now, these variables at the moment don't have a initial value, they're just declared, so if we try to do anything with them at the moment, it would come up with an error because they don't have any values. So, on the next line, we assign the value 8436 to number 1. Notice how we don't put a data type in front of this because we've already declared it here, so we don't need to do it again. And then on the next line, exactly the same, we're giving the value of 72 to number 2. Then, this is the bit which the tutorial is mainly about, is arithmetic with variables. We're assigning the value of number 1 plus number 2 to the variable total. Now, all that does is exactly what you expect it to do. It assigns the value which is being held in number 1, which is 8436, added to number 2, which is 72, and then assigns that to total. So total will hold the value of 8508. I make that. We'll see in a minute if I'm right. Then on the next line, it's system.out.println, and that, as we know from Hello World program, prints out things on the screen. Then we've got a string here which says the answer is now. And then we got a plus. So basically all this does is it adds the plus sign, adds the variable total to the end of this string. If I did this, all that would do is print out the literal words, the answer is total. It would actually print out the word total. So if it's outside double quotes and we add a plus sign, which means it's adding it to the end of the string, it will look for the variable total, find it, and display its value. If there was no variable called total, that would give us a compilation error. Now, that is as hard as arithmetic gets between variables. Of course, you can also use other mathematical operators like minus, just replace the plus with a minus, multiply, star sign, which you can get by Shift 8, or on the numpad section of your keyboard, it's up the top right there, and divide, which is a /. Now the final operator, which you may not be familiar with, is the modulus operator, which looks like the percent sign. That is, you can write that by pressing Shift then 5. Now all that does is it divides number 1 by number 2, but instead of displaying the result of that, it displays the remainder. So if number 1 was 10 and number 2 was 6, it would display 4, because 10 divided by 6 goes once, and then you got 4 left over, so it would display the value 4. It would assign the value 4 to total. Okay, so you can also do arithmetic with numbers, not just variables, of course. So if I said number 1 equals 8436 plus 120, that would work out this. So that would be 8556, and it would assign it to number 1. if I times that by 2, then the operator precedence is the same as normal mathematics. The multiplication would come first, then it would add to that. But if you did want to add the numbers first, then times by 2, you can just place brackets around it like that. Now, I find that it's best to put brackets around everything when you're doing stuff like that, because it just makes it clear what's going on when, and you can spot some possible mistakes. It could do something you didn't want it to do, something unexpected, if you don't put the brackets round, which could lead to some runtime errors. So say that you were creating a game and the health was worked out by some formula, and instead of timesing it by 2 first, it added it and then times it by 2, so that means the player would get double health instead of what they should get. So that can lead to all kinds of problems. So I recommend putting brackets in, then it's clear to yourself and anyone else who looks at your code what you want it to do. And that is about it. I'm just gonna mention that if you wanted to print out 2 variables in that, you can. You would just like plus number 1, that would just print out the total, then it will print out number 1. Not that we need to do that. And also, if we had a plus sign, we can add in another string. So put a full stop, then wow, I didn't know that. There we go. That just will say the answer is whatever the total of that is, and then if we change that back to plus, then that will actually be a total. Then it adds that to the end of the string. Then this string is added to the end of that string, which is just a full stop, and then wow, I didn't know that. Okay. Right, so let's compile that so we can just see the output, and just to clarify anything you didn't quite get. So let's open up command prompt. First we need to get to the desktop, of course. Then Java C. What was it called? Arithmatic. Arithmatic.jar. That compiles fine. And then let's run it. And that displays exactly what we expected, except I didn't save it before I added in that. So if I just save that, then recompile, hopefully, there we go. So, the answer is 17,184. Wow, I didn't know that. There, so you can see that in action. So hopefully that has explained anything that you weren't sure about in that little bit of code. That's really it when it comes to arithmetic and variables. I mean, it doesn't get much more complicated than that. So what I would recommend is that you just play around with it, make your own programs to do stuff like, I don't know, solve a quadratic equation. You could probably do that. It's just the same, just a few more steps involved rather than just adding 2 numbers together. You could try that. I don't know how you get on with that. I'm not sure how good these tutorials have been, but give it a go. If you get errors, don't worry. You can always go on a forum. I'm sure you'll find some people that will help you, or just comment on YouTube and I'll check it out and see if I can be of service. So that wraps it up really for variables in arithmetic. Next tutorial I will probably start going into some different program flow that will make your programs a little more interesting. So until then, keep on coding, just test stuff out, and I'll see you then.